Hello, friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fontin, and I'm here with my sister, Annette Deleu from InfiniteSoulLove.com. And
Hello,
we
everyone.
and we are here to talk about how to talk to your angels. This is a question I actually get all the time from clients that I coach. And we are here on Ascension Sunday. So, welcome. If you're new to my channel, please do subscribe below. Click on that bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. So, we are going to teach you a little bit about what we personally learned when we started on our spiritual journey about communicating with our angels, because everybody has guardian angels. Of course, there are the archangels, and everybody has spirit guides. And so we're just going to kind of start talking about our own experiences when we had our own spiritual awakening. So come and join us. So Annette, I have a question. When did you first learn to communicate with your angels? How was that like for you? Or what was the concept for you when you learned?
So it was interesting because it was through a psychic medium that I had gotten a reading from, actually through you, because you had originally met her at a psychic fair, I think.
Oh yeah, it was at an author fair. So are we talking about Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so yeah. So remember, you had actually recommended her to me.
Right.
And I had gotten readings in the past from various people. But it was always very just like, okay, what's going to happen kind of thing. It wasn't anything deeper than that. And so the reading that I got through Karen was pretty life changing, because she originally first started saying, hey, why don't you start working with angel cards? And to me, I was like, okay, that sounds okay. And keep in mind, my first experience with tarot cards was when I was like 21, and I got a deck and I was like, oh, I'm going to play with these. And I had no idea what I was doing. And I basically didn't know how to pray over the cards. I mean, it was a mess. It was a total mess.
And tarot
So,
cards can be pretty scary. Like the traditional deck has
yeah.
some pretty scary imagery on it.
Indeed. And also, I mean, as well as I do, with our like Catholic upbringing, we were taught very early on that, those things were not good for you, and
Yeah.
that, we weren't allowed to use them. So the fact that these were angel cards, it really spoke to me, and it gave me sort of that confidence to be able to start using them.
Hmm. And I remember that you gave me my first Oracle deck. I guess it was per Karen's recommendation,
Yeah.
but it was an Archangel Oracle deck that I still have today. And that
Yeah.
was my very first. And I think that was around 2015 or so. It was like 20, maybe early 2015 or late 2015. And of course, I didn't know how to use it at the time. I mean, I think you
Yeah.
kind of talked me through it per Karen's instruction. But for me, it was like a really hard journey into accepting that I would someday be conversing with my angels. Like
Yeah.
I tell this story in many of my videos, and I certainly tell this story in the Twin Flame boot camps about in my meditation course about how I used to talk to my angels when I was a kid. I was really little. I was like 5 or 6 years old, and nobody knew this.
Mhm.
But I thought I was talking to God, and I really feel like now it was probably talking with my angels, because there were moments in my childhood where I didn't feel safe and I didn't feel
Right.
loved. And so I began talking to my angels thinking it was God, and of course, but I would hear the voices back say, like, you're going to be fine, you're going to be okay. And so I guess that was my really first experience speaking with my guardian angels. And then as far as tarot's concerned, I think it was around 2010, I was in New Orleans for a Chopra Center event with Deepak Chopra and David Simon. And they had a party at the end for like this Mardi Gras celebration, and they had a psychic there doing tarot readings. And literally, it was like one person after another person. I think I was the last person in the line. And he said, you can ask one question. And I said, okay, will my business succeed? And he asked me to pull 3 cards, and I actually pulled the cards, which was kind of odd. And he said yes. And then he was like, okay, goodbye. So like that was my first experience. And I took a picture of the cards. I had no idea what they meant,
Yeah.
but I was always really skeptical. And I went to a psychic after a big breakup in 2013. What was super funny in it was that she was doing my tarot reading, and she was a psychic medium too, kind of like Karen.
Right.
So the cards were not the main focus, but she did ask me again to like tap on the cards, and she picked the cards, and she said to me, "You're going to do this someday." And I said, "What? Do what?" And I was starting to study astrology, and she's like, I'm like, "Astrology?" She's like, "No, no, 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 no." And she tapped on the cards, and she's like, "You're going to do this someday." And I said, "No, I'm not." And she goes, "Yes, you are." I was like, "No, I'm not. No."
You know, it's so funny because I had the exact same experience. But it wasn't a tarot reading. It was actually just a regular psychic reading that I had had. And this was years before I got the reading with Karen. I think this was probably right around the time that I got the Vedic astrology reading. So
Yeah.
we're talking probably 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And basically he looked at me and he's like, "You know, you're psychic, right?" And I just looked at him. I'm like, "Really? Seriously?" Like, had no idea. And he basically said the same thing. So yeah, it's so funny that we both got that message way back then. And we're both like, really, come on.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that's any indication that if you're sitting here watching this video going, "Yeah, I can't do that," you can.
You
Trust
can
me.
do it. And you know what I like to say, Annette, and I think maybe now that you're on the other side of things, where
Yeah.
you had disbelief. So being that this is what you're doing now with your Akashic record readings and your spiritual guidance, that this is part of your job. So this is
Yeah.
what you're doing. But what I like to say to viewers and what I like to say to my coaching clients is that everybody has psychic abilities.
Yeah.
Everybody. It's an idea of perception. So we have a tendency to really see in the beginning when we're children, we see everything. Like, remember, I had an imaginary friend when I was a kid. And
Weehoo, I remember.
yeah. And I mean, who knows who that person was or imaginary person was? It could have been a spirit guide. I don't know.
Right.
But when we are children, everything is totally open to us. And then through our education, things get closed, right? The doors get closed. And so we really believe like, oh, there's just certain people out there that have those gifts.
Right.
Those are the people. They wear a lot of like silk scarves and they have the crystal ball. And but everybody has the gift. Everybody does. And it's
Yeah.
just how open are you to receiving it?
Yeah. And also it has to do with which divination tools is what we're talking about today,
Right.
are the most effective for you, because there are so many different types of divination tools. I mean, there's the tarot cards, the angel cards.
Well, let's
And
explain what is a divination tool, because I think there might be some
oh,
viewers
sure.
who have no idea. When they hear the word divination tool, they might think like, well, what is it, a wand? Like, what is a divination tool? Like,
Well, and so, I mean, most people probably know the word divination from Harry Potter, right? So it's
yeah.
Professor Trelawney's class, which was the divination class. So essentially, divination is simply a means in which you speak to the divine. So you're speaking to your angels, you're speaking to the universe, to God. It's just a tool to help you do that. As you and I both know,
Right.
that essentially we can now get our messages directly from our angels through our intuition, through our gifts. But it wasn't always like that. Trust me, it wasn't always
Right.
like that.
Right.
The first angel deck that I got actually was an app on my phone. And I was literally like flipping cards, flipping cards, flipping cards, trying to get the answer that I wanted. We all go through those beginning stages of trying to
It
figure
can
that out.
become very obsessive when you're not trusting in your own intuition.
100%.
And that's when the messages with any divination tool that you happen to be using, that is when the messages can get very confusing. because you are, and in the video a couple of weeks ago when I talked about how to access your intuition through the ego filter, if you still have that ego filter there, which is like, I need an answer now, I have to have an answer now, I need to know
Yeah.
now, the messages can get a little confusing even if
Yeah.
you're using your favorite divination tool.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Not only can the answers get confusing, but then also I think your angels get a little confused because they don't know what question you're asking. Because when you get into that, and I think you and I used to call it the tarot card frenzy. Like we would
Yes.
get to a frenzy where we're just trying to figure out exactly what we wanted to know, when in fact your angels are telling you to take a breather,
Yeah.
which is why in our deck that we created,
We do
we
have a
have
card.
the stop, breathe, and pull another
Another
card,
card. Yes.
because, and that is there specifically for that reason, because we know what it's like to sit there and just try to get answers and not actually connecting. And that's the problem, is that when you're just pulling cards, you're not connecting to source. You're not connecting to your angels. You're literally just pulling cards.
Right.
So
And remember with the app that you and I both had, there was that one card called A Year From Now.
yes.
And I remember when I had the actual card deck, like, and I would get A Year From Now, I would like throw it across the room until I finally threw it out. I was like, but what we figured is that that was our angels saying, you need to stop. Like,
Yes. And actually, that was a really funny lesson that we both had with
yeah,
that exact same card, because you decided you wanted to throw it out because it was so frustrating. For me, my angels kind of redefined that card for me because I had gotten so angry at it. So basically, what that card ended up meaning for me was like, like, you know how you're getting warmer, you're getting warmer, you're getting warmer, you're getting colder, colder, colder. Like, so for that, it wasn't exactly a no, but it's like you're pretty far off the mark right now. You know, so so yeah, so and it is interesting how you can develop a relationship with your tarot cards,
yes,
and your certain cards mean certain things, because I know when you and I pull cards for each other, because we do sometimes when we need
right.
each other's guidance.
And that's very
And
helpful, right? Because, and I think to follow that thread, when you are too deeply emotional in it
yeah.
and you are not connected to higher source and you're not connected to your higher self, and believe me, we're human beings. And
Mhm.
sometimes we do get in those states where we're so emotional, we can't connect properly. It's good to have a trusted friend, a trusted advisor, a trusted reader that can like pull you out of that and really see things more clearly.
Right. Well, and especially given the fact that, like, if there's a card that means something in particular to me, and we've come across this before where you'll
Yeah.
pull the same card and you're like, well, no, this, it means this for me. And I basically, I'm like, yeah, but it means this for me. She's like, no, but you're like, this is the message that you need to hear. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So that can be actually an interpretation that is different from what you're used to, and a meaning that you're not used to, because you get used to certain meanings of certain cards,
For
and maybe
sure.
your angels are trying to teach you to sort of step outside of your norm of what you actually think the card means.
Exactly. And in the beginning, well, so I guess with let's just talk about cards and then we're gonna speak about other divination tools. The one other thing I really want to say, because anybody can buy a deck of cards, obviously, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, it's out there. There are so many people making really good cards and really pretty cards, different variations of tarot. And then Oracle, that was another question I get a lot, is what is the difference? And or the tarot deck follows a certain story. It's been the same story for like 400 years, which is a story of life basically. And oracle cards can be anything. They could just be an answer card, or they could be like a health card or career path or whatever. So they don't have to have a specific and set number of cards or number of specific things, whereas tarot is always 78 cards
Right.
with major arcana, minor arcana, and the four suits basically.
Right. And what I like to say too is that oracle cards are amazing clarifiers.
Yeah.
So because the tarot does sort of have a particular meaning when you put two cards together, they have a particular meaning when you have a certain set of cards that are in conjunction with each
Mhm.
other. Whereas
And they're
the
very vast. It's kind of like a
yeah,
bigger picture interpretation when you use tarot.
right. So
Yeah.
then if you're in a place where you have the big picture, but then you need more details, the oracle decks are really good at being able to give you those smaller details.
Yeah. There are 2 points that I wanted to make to that, and Annette, maybe you can testify to this, is that in the beginning when we were doing our readings individually, we interpreted tarot as having good cards or bad cards kind of.
Oh yeah.
And when you saw a bad card, you got really scared and you're like, "Oh my god, I'm doomed for the rest of the day."
Yep.
And what I like to say is that what we have learned over time, and I certainly have, is that there is no bad card.
No.
There are cards there to teach you things and to
Yeah.
give you a heads up on what potentially could happen if you follow this current path today or tomorrow.
Right.
And so there are no bad cards in tarot.
No. And it's almost like a heads up card, right?
Mhm.
Because I remember whenever we would get the three of swords, it's like,
Yes.
oh God, the card of great sadness. What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
And you always wonder if, if something bad is gonna happen that day or something like that. And more times than not, it is literally your angels giving you a heads up that maybe there is something that's going to be happening, that your current trajectory of your reaction to somebody or something else is going to cause some sort
Heartbreak.
of strife,
Yeah.
right? So they're telling you to be mindful of your words, be mindful of certain things. So it's not, don't take this as a, oh my God, I got the three of swords, something horrible is going to happen to me, and take that as gospel, because that's not how this works. Like your angels communicate to you in order for you to make the best possible choice for your life. That's why they want to communicate with you, because they want to help you in your life so you have the most joyful life.
Right. And they can't help you without your permission. So they can save your life because they're there for that. So if it's not your time to go, they will intervene to save your life without your permission, but they
Yep.
can't help you on a day-to-day basis without your express permission. So when you're asking through the cards as a means of divination or other tools, it's a good idea to just ask them permission to help,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, is just to say, thank you for helping me today. Understand what I need to know to learn and grow, for example.
Right.
And the second thing that I wanted to say to that is that the more you use your divination tools, the more you are also simultaneously channeling messages from your angels through the cards or through the other divination tools we're going to talk about. So
Right.
it's not face value of the cards necessarily. In the beginning, it's very mechanical, and you can read books on what each card, for example, in the tarot signifies. But even in my readings that I do today, it's more of they're there, and whatever my angels tell me, give a heads up to, is what I interpret it as.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is how you start to listen better as someone who is trying to communicate with your angels. And it becomes more beautiful because it's not, the divination tool is no longer just a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a means through which you can start to see things in a very different way.
Yeah. That's very, very, very astute.
So what are some other divination tools? Because I know you use some different ones as well.
I do. I started using a pendulum as well. Keep in mind that the divination tools are all for various different things.
Okay.
That's how you sort of get to know your divination tools, to know how you're going to use them and when.
Hmm.
For really, really important stuff, I'm probably going to go to my my cards, and then I'll probably call you and ask you to pull a couple cards for me,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
because, like you said, when you're that close to something, sometimes you need a little bit of that distance in order to get a good answer. But for a pendulum, and if you don't know what a pendulum is, it's essentially, they have stones that you have at the end of pendulums, crystals. This right now, I have lapis lazuli at the end of my pendulum. And so it's a means to just get yes, no, or maybe answers.
Okay. So wait, how do you get the maybe?
Basically, you program your crystal or your pendulum and you work with it. And so this is something that I cover in my spiritual guidance sessions.
Oh, okay.
And basically I walk you through how to program your pendulum, how to get your yes, no, and maybe. And so there's a process in which you go through to get your yes, no, and maybe.
Oh,
now for me, my maybe is front and back.
Okay.
And actually that's not always a maybe. It's oftentimes we cannot tell you. That is what information you are able to get right now.
Got it.
So if it's not, so right now it's going back and forth because it's demonstrating for me right now.
Yeah.
So the thing is that if it's saying that it can't give me the information that I need, then I go to my angels and I say, okay, so is this because things still need to unfold? Is this because it's not a yes or no question, right? Because it could simply be that it's a bigger answer than just a yes or no.
Yeah.
So I'll ask things like that.
Okay. So could we demonstrate? Could I ask you a couple of questions to the pendulum and see?
Yeah.
And I think that for everybody out there, including when you use an answer deck like the one that will come out soon on Kickstarter, I promise, again, the World of Answers Oracle, the Pendulum, or any like type of deck that you're using, yes or no, or maybe, it's best to state, is it in my best and highest good too? Or is it in my greatest good too? Because an answer could be yes or no based on the fact that, sometimes we just do things and we can do things and, it's kind of up in the air. But with things that you're actually specifically asking about, it's really it's in your highest good to ask, like, is this in my best and highest good? Will this lead me on my right life path? Because that's kind of all where we want to get to make our lives easier. We can certainly go down a path that's not ours, but then we're going to have to course correct to come back to our path.
And that's why it's not in our highest good to use words like, do I need to do this? Or should I do this? Because should doesn't mean anything. It's not something that is really concrete enough to ask a question, right? Mm-hmm. So the statement you just said is the perfect thing to ask for this. And one thing I wanted to mention too, before you ask your questions, is simply before using any of our divination tools that we're talking about today, always clear them. Yeah. And we maybe we'll do a future video on how to clear everything. But you can always use sage, Palo Santo, simply say a prayer over the crystal, over the cards, asking for divine light and protection, and then off you go.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. Are we ready? Is the pendulum cleared? Are we good?
The pendulum is cleared. I cleared it ahead of time. Yes.
Okay, good. So my first question for the angels is it in my best and highest good to take a friend to Hawaii when I go this May of 2021?
Okay. So is it in Michelle Fondin's best and highest good to take a friend when she goes to Hawaii in May of 2021? And that's a yes. That's a big yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to go shopping for some friends now.
Right? I would go with you if I could leave the country.
I know, but you can't leave the country. That really sucks. That would be so cool. I just heard that the luau is open. So I'm waiting for the spa to reopen, but the luau is going to be there. Okay.
If you noticed when I was asking the question and when you were asking the question, we're being really specific. So is it in her best and highest good to go to this place with a friend in 2021.
Right.
So
In
like,
May of 2021, right?
In May of 2021, because the thing is that if you were just to say, is it in my best and highest good to bring a friend with me to Hawaii and just leave it at that and not say the date?
Right.
It says no.
Okay.
And the reason why it might say no is because you might go to Hawaii 4 or 5 more times in the next few years.
Right.
And maybe one of those times you take a friend and the rest of the times you don't.
Exactly.
So it's, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it doesn't know which question to answer. So it's going to answer, I guess, the most obvious one, I suppose.
Right.
But yeah, you
okay,
have to.
well, let's get really specific, because I'm going to ask another like super specific question just to demonstrate.
Yeah.
I've been on a high protein diet. Everyone in my audience knows that I've been bodybuilding. So along with bodybuilding comes higher protein.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if it's now time to add more carbs. So I want to know, is it in my best and highest good to increase my carb intake in my daily diet?
So is it in Michelle Fondin's best and highest good to increase her daily carb intake for her current diet? And that's a resounding yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because so, and that's the other thing. So my yes is a clockwise circle.
Wow, that is so cool. Okay.
So because you can see it going around right now, and you can see
Yeah,
how big that is.
that's so
And
fast.
when it's kind of a small yes, they'll give me like kind of
Oh,
something like this. It's
okay.
like, just it's very small. You can see it's like barely moving. Like it's, so if it's kind of like, yeah, well, you could,
Mhm.
it's fine. But if it's swinging like that means that that's a resounding yes.
Okay, that's very cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, you could really see it like
Yeah.
spinning around. That's insane. We had talked briefly about muscle testing. I don't know if you want to, that's like a third divination tool, which it's pretty a cool one.
Yeah.
But typically what I've learned, and it was popularized by Dr. David Hawkins in a book called The Power versus Force. And it's a pretty cool thing where typically you have two people with a muscle testing. And because your muscle memory, your body knows the truth. And that's basically what it's based on. So maybe you could just describe it a little bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the pendulum is based on sort of the same concept, because some people are like, oh gosh, are some spirits moving my pendulum? Or like, who's moving the pendulum? You are moving the pendulum. That's the big secret. You are moving it. It's not that, it's being moved by some outside force. It's literally your higher self giving you the answers and allowing your ego and your human body to get out of the way. Okay. So that is how the pendulum works. Now, you can't see that I'm moving at all when I'm moving the pendulum. It is literally, it is an imperceptible movement. Now, muscle testing is very similar in the sense that you're getting the human body to sort of step aside for a moment, and you're allowing your higher self and your subconscious to take over. Okay. So the really easy way of doing muscle testing, like if you're in a grocery store and you're like, oh, I really want to buy that brownie. Is it in my highest best good to buy that brownie? Literally you can so you take your fingers almost like in an okay symbol,
Like
and
this?
interlock them.
Like this?
Yep. And interlock them. And is it in my highest good to purchase this brownie?
Mm-hmm.
And you do this. And if it's locked, that's a yes.
Oh, really? The lock is a yes. Okay.
Yep. And then because the weaker the muscle. So like if you let go, that means your muscles are sort of weaker.
Mhm.
So that's a no.
Okay.
Right. So, and that's
It's in
just
my best and highest good to eat a brownie today. What? What?
yes, it is. It is in your best and highest good. So that's the other thing, is that you might be shocked at some of the answers that you get, that maybe it is your best and highest good to have a brownie, because it will bring you a lot of joy right now. Right. And that's ultimately what your angels want, is they want you to be absolutely joyous and happy all the time. So they're not always going to tell you to eat brownies, right? But like,
Yeah, exactly.
but
That might be
also
overkill.
with muscle testing, I have not read his book, but it basically, this is how it works for me. It could work differently for other people. I've seen people do muscle testing where they
Right,
hold
right, with the arm out to the side.
and yeah, and they kind of do this.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's whatever works for you. For me personally, I don't use muscle testing that often because I typically rely on my pendulum. If I'm out and about and I'm not using my pendulum, I just use my intuition.
Yeah. And the thing is, what I think everyone needs to know about direct communication with heaven, direct communication with your angels, is that all of these tools of divination, and obviously your intuition is really what Annette was saying about getting your ego out of the way, getting your emotions out of the way, getting your mind, the mind space with all the crazy thoughts out of the way.
Right.
And in those ways, you can hear the voice of your angels much better.
Right. Absolutely.
That's what it's about. And we've got our intuitive kitty, Lucius, coming to visit here.
Exactly.
Lucius is like, I know all about intuition.
He certainly does. He absolutely does.
Cats are very, very intuitive.
And in fact, cats will clear negative energies out of your house on a regular basis.
Yes.
It's part of their job.
That is amazing.
Yep.
Cats are amazing.
They are.
Well, Annette, where can everybody find you to either get some spiritual guidance or an Akashic record reading?
So everybody can find me at infinitesoulLove.com.
Okay.
On social media, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And that is Infinite Soul Love 1111.
Okay, great. We're going to post those links below for everybody. And if you have indeed gotten spiritual guidance or an Akashic record reading from Annette, please do put it in the comment section below to give her a shout out. So thank you so much, Annette, for having this conversation with me on Ascension Sunday.
You're so very welcome. And if you have divination tools that you like to use that we did not mention today, feel free to add them in the comments.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on that bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. Thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with others who are interested in connecting with their own angels. And thank you so much for supporting this channel. You can buy a book or 2 or 3. You can also pledge your support on Patreon, www.patreon.com/Michelle S. Fondin. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.